Remember when heavy metal ruled our lives? When great albums and great concerts came out every month?
Yeah, the 80s.
Well, it's time to look back at those days, so take out your old vinyl
And cassettes.
put on your denim jacket.
And raise your fist in the air.
It's time for the 80s Metal Hang, a classic heavy metal podcast.
Oh, yeah.
This week we discuss March of 1983 with Saxon reaching for the power and the glory, Zebra earning their stripes with their debut album, and Thin Lizzy riding the lightning. All of this plus Kicks, Helix, and Europe on the 80s Metal Hang, a classic heavy metal history podcast.
All right. So, hey, how's it going, Rob?
It's going all right.
All right. It's been a while since the last episode. Not really.
It's a week in podcast world, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, we mentioned the last episode and the first episode, and we won't mention this every episode, but we're just two guys from Long Island, New York, who are doing what we do anyway when we hang out, which is talk about 80s hard rock and heavy metal. So we thought, hey, let's just put microphones in front of ourselves.
If we enjoy it, there has to be people who will also want to just get in on this.
Yes. So we can't be two guys from Long Island at our age and not talk about this first band whose debut album came out in March of 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And that band is
Zebra.
Zebra, we call them local like legends because I think in 1983, I assumed they were a Long Island band, which they were. I mean, they lived up here and they played around here, but they were not from Long Island.
No, they weren't. I thought the same thing. I was always like, yay, Long Island guys, which again, they became, but they came from New Orleans. Interesting, huh?
They were a New Orleans band. You could date back to like 75, 77 when these three guys got together and relocated from New Orleans to the New York area along Long Island, where they were huge.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, if Long Island, well, I don't want to say had one band that was massive. There were a few, like Twisted Sister and whatever, but Zebra had, and still does, have a massive following, a local following, and you could say national.
Yeah, so around the time before this album came out, their local following, I guess local here and local in the New Orleans area, they would draw, thousands of people to clubs, play 4 or 5 nights a week, and this is all without having a record deal. And they were so big that they got attention from local radio. We had a local radio station, WBAB.
Mm-hmm.
They used to play their songs, straight from demos before they even had an album.
Yeah, they had that homegrown show, and they ultimately came out with the homegrown albums. And Zebra was on one, and other bands like, I think the Good Rats and Twisted Sister had an old song.
Yeah, Twisted Sister had the Bad Boys of Rock and Roll. That was a song they had on the homegrown album, which I think we both have, right?
I still think I still have it, yeah.
So Zebra, on the success of, being a massive band, it still took them a long time, though. I mean, they were, if you look at their first album, some of the songs are copyrighted in like 1980, 1981. So it took them until 83 to come out with this album. And it wasn't some local produced album. This was an album.
It was on Capitol Records, right?
Yeah, it was, we actually have the album right in front of us, Atlantic Records.
Atlantic. Oops.
And their producer was Jack Douglas. And Jack Douglas was no first-time producer. This is the guy that did every Aerosmith album from Get Your Wings through like Draw the Line. Even came back and did Aerosmith's album in 82, Rockin' a Hard Place. He also was working with John Lennon when he got killed.
Wow.
He was a producer on Double Fantasy. And later, Milk and Honey, which came out after John Lennon died. So the Zebra, great band. They have a great producer. They're on a major label, Atlantic. And what'd you think of the album?
I loved it, and I still love it. I could play this album front to back, and there really are no bad songs. There's no songs where you say, I'll just skip it, or this will lead to a better song. They're all great songs. I think it's just a perfect album might be a bit of a stretch because, what's perfect? But
Right.
There's nothing, I can't find anything wrong with it.
Tell Me What You Want, One More Chance, Slow Down. As I said before, Who's Behind the Door? So Tell Me What You Want and Who's Behind the Door were the singles. They had videos for those songs. When You Get There, Take Your Fingers From My Hair, Don't Walk Away, and a song with a lot of la-las in it.
The La La song.
The la-la song. Actually, I really like When You Get There, the song that starts side 2.
Yeah, and Take Your Fingers from My Hair was great.
Yeah. Another Long Island band, Dream Theater, actually they covered that song on like a B-side.
Really?
Yeah.
How? That's weird.
So these Long Island slash Louisiana local legends, Randy Jackson, lead vocals, guitars, made the soul songwriter, Felix Hanneman, bass and keyboards, Guy Gelso on drums.
And, not the Randy Jackson from American Idol.
No, no, not
Completely different.
What's Up Dog, Randy Jackson. No. Um, but these guys, I mean, Zebra, they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. They've been doing shows, not just on Long Island and in Louisiana. They've been doing shows in Florida.
California. I think LA.
Yeah, they did some shows in California. So, people know who they are. They never became a huge arena headliner, but, when you could still draw crowds in major parts of the country 50 years on, you did something right.
Yeah, especially since they really only had that album. They had a second album, but it didn't do so well. So, just on the first album, I mean, that's amazing that they're still to today, they're still playing.
Yeah, they actually ended up having 3 albums in the '80s. There was No Telling Lies, and they had an album 3.5, and then they independently came out an album, a 4th album in the early, 2000s. But, still guys that I mean, I don't know exactly where they live. I don't wanna sound like a stalker or anything, but I mean, I think they still live in Long Island, or at least here enough that they
I think Randy Jackson does. He's still playing, he's still doing
yeah.
things.
They're around. I mean, you're not our age playing an instrument and you don't have some way that you crossed paths with the members of Zebra. Either your friend took drum lessons from Guy Gelso or your band opened up for Zebra.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of Zebra connections
It's
on
not
Long
yeah,
Island. And yeah, and from all stories that they're nice guys and they,
of course. It's not like they made their album, and they went some secluded mansion. They're
yeah,
they're they're still a part of Long Island and a
yeah,
community in their own way.
absolutely.
And, even after this, the initial album, Randy Jackson still played basically every Wednesday night at a local place called Sundance. It
Oh
was,
yeah.
it was like all Led Zeppelin songs and things like that, but
They recorded a live album at that same place.
yeah, like and he still, Wednesday night, it would be packed out every Wednesday.
And I was actually lucky enough to see them live back in March of '83.
Is that with Aerosmith?
The month that the album came out, they opened up for Aerosmith, and we talked last episode about Aerosmith having a very troubled tour where Steven Tyler was not on his best behavior and wasn't performing very well. Zebra, I don't think was opening for them the whole tour, but opened up for them at Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, March 1st, 1983. And my cousin and I got tickets, and we had heard of Zebra from being played on the radio. And Zebra, from what I remember, got such an enormous response that I remember thinking, these guys are going to be huge, and they're from Long Island, that local pride.
It should have been huge. It should have
Yeah.
been much, much bigger.
I mean, I remember Randy Jackson sitting on a stool and saying, our debut album's coming out, like next week, next month, whatever he said. And the crowd just going crazy. And he started playing the opening of Who's Behind the Door. The place went nuts. And I think the reason I remember it is because when Aerosmith went on, my cousin and I actually snuck up closer to the stage,
As we all did.
as we all tried to do. And Aerosmith was a mess. Even at 13, I could tell. The power went out halfway through their set, like half of their giant A backdrop. The lights went out. Then the amps went out. And all you heard were Joey Kramer's drums. And
Yeah, when it rains, it pours, huh?
yeah, so
What a tour.
when we left there, we were like, if anyone asked me, I was like, Zebra blew Aerosmith away. And, not just because Aerosmith was bad either. Zebra was great. They went on to open for ZZ Top and Loverboy in those early years. And yeah,
Are there any videos of that show at the Coliseum? Or,
I
like, on YouTube or
found a
something?
very grainy one of just Aerosmith, but there are a couple of cool videos of Zebra on YouTube, either '83, '84. I think that they're opening up for, again, like Loverboy or ZZ Top, and it's a really pretty professionally filmed video in somewhere in Texas, I believe. So there are live Zebra videos from that era if you search.
I'll have to look for that. And did you know that they were actually inducted into the Long Island Hall of Fame,
Really,
2012?
maybe if this podcast goes well, we can get into the Long Island Hall of
Well, I
Fame.
don't see why not.
We'll kind of build it up a little bit more.
If we send any old cassettes of our
Yeah.
band, especially that birthday party we played when we were like 14,
Oh, we're not getting in there because of that band. We're gonna
too
uh,
big.
too big. Local legends. Speaking of local legends, there was a band who had an album come out in March of '83 that were I called them Baltimore local legends. They were actually from Hagerstown, Maryland, and that band is Kix,
Kicks, yes.
not
Uh,
the cereal,
this
the
was
band.
no, not the cereal. I did like the cereal, though, when I was a kid, so that's
Wasn't it,
something.
like, very plain?
No, it was these, like, little balls, and they were flavored, like, supposed to be fruit or something, like
Are you thinking of Trix? I thought
yes, maybe. Oh, Kicks, yes. Okay, yeah, sorry. Tricks
the
with the
Kix was
rabbit.
the unflavored version of Trix, I believe.
Yeah, so forget the cereal. To
Anyway,
hell with it.
we'll save that for our cereal podcast.
But, yeah, that
Um,
album was Cool Kids, right?
yeah,
I
Cool Kids.
think it was their 2nd album so far.
Second album and, Kix, I mean, I'm not actually, I'm not really joking when I say, Baltimore local legends. They were big down there. There was a bar down there called Hammerjacks, and I remember hearing that bar's name, but, there was like a circuit of East Coast places like, L'Amour's, of course,
Toad's Place.
Toad's Place in New Haven. You
Yeah.
had, in Brooklyn, you had legendary L'Amour's, and then going down the East Coast, you had other places, and one of them was Hammerjacks in, Maryland. So I remember always like Kicks. They would always be doing things in Maryland, but they would also frequently come up and play a bar on Long Island called Sundance a
Yeah,
lot.
that's we were speaking of with Zebra.
Yeah.
It was a relatively small venue, that place, but it was just amazing. All the big acts that came to Long Island played at Sundance. It was a great place.
Yeah, and I even feel like Kicks, like even when they weren't on a national tour, they would end up here because I mean, was Baltimore like 4 hours away from New York? So they were kind of, I don't want to say local, but they were like mid-Atlantic, Northeast local. And like you said, Cool Kids was their second album. I feel like they've been around forever. They actually only had 7 total albums, and this is not one that's a
Not one of
big.
their
No,
bigger.
it's not a big hit. I think the title song "Cool Kids" was the only one that I remembered.
Yeah, I don't remember Kicks from that album. I got into them more when they came out with, Midnight Dynamite and, Blow My Fuse.
Well, if he was Cold Blood, and then they had that
Yeah,
that big ballad later on.
and the microphone with the fuse attached to it.
Hey, it fits.
Mhm.
So yeah, so they had the second album. It didn't really, like Craig said, didn't really take off. We didn't really know much about it until a couple albums later in the '80s when they really started to take off and had a platinum album with that Blow My Fuse
Oh,
album.
really? It was platinum?
Yeah, I believe so. They
Wow.
had that what's that ballad? Don't
Oh,
close your eyes.
yes,
Don't
that's
close
it.
your eyes. Well, he said that a lot. I don't know if that's the exact title.
Actually, it's when you mentioned it, I that tune came into my head. So that says something right there.
Yeah, but then, like a lot of those '80s bands that kinda disappeared a little bit in the '90s, came back in the 2000s and did a bunch of, package shows and tours and had, at least most of their members, but they decided to do a farewell show. And I know everyone's farewell shows don't last, so we'll see, but in September of '23, they played their farewell show in Maryland, and they have not played a show since.
And that's that for Kicks, huh?
Continuing the local legends, how about legends from Kitchener, Ontario?
Are we talking about Helix?
Who else but Helix? From Kitchener, Ontario in Canada, and in March of 1983 came out with their third album, No Rest for the Wicked.
It wasn't as big as some of the later ones, which you would definitely know, but they had at least 2 good songs. I really liked, Heavy Metal Love. It's
That's like probably the one song, one of the 2 or 3 songs that get played on like satellite radio, or
yeah,
if you go to like a playlist on Pandora or Apple Music, and that's the Helix song that will come up.
yeah, it's pretty good. The rest of the record, I don't know too much about that one. Never Wanna Lose You was another song I remember from it.
Give me an R, R, O, O,
That was the
C.
next one,
See, that's
wasn't
the
it?
next album, yeah. But No Rest for the Wicked, you see this a lot with like '80s metal. The titles are reused a lot. Like No Rest for the Wicked, that was an Ozzy album. Like 4 years later,
Mhm.
5 years later, the first Zack album was called No Rest for the Wicked also. But this is Helix that we're talking about, and they're still around.
Are they? I
I,
didn't know that.
I don't know what form or whatever, but there's no official declaration that they're over. And now, if you follow hard rock and heavy metal still, there's so many festivals. There's the Ep.3 festival in Maryland that gets together all these different hair bands. There's Rocklahoma Festival. There's opportunities to play. So
Endless cruises.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All
The
these
Monsters
rock
of Rock
groups.
cruises,
Yeah.
and so if you keep some form of your band together, never say never. You may come back someday.
Look at records came back. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
never say never, as you say.
yeah. And like not that I don't trust Kicks, but when they have their farewell show in 23, you know,
Yeah,
every
farewell tours are
everybody's had a farewell show. So
and some have had a
for
few,
the
that's
Kicks,
for sure.
yeah, for the Kicks fans out there, hopefully they'll get back together.
Speaking of tours, they toured with everybody, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
remember they were with Crew, Whitesnake, Wasp, Aerosmith, Rush, I think.
I wouldn't doubt it.
It was just all over the place, and another band that never really broke into superstardom. They were they did well, but
Oh,
they
Helix. I'm thinking about Kick. You talking about Helix?
yeah,
Oh, yeah, touring Helix. Yeah, they did open for Rush.
yeah.
They did open for Rush in '84 on the Grace Under Pressure tour.
Oh, boy.
Nassau Coliseum. They opened up for Rush. Um, but anyway,
Oh, wait, did is that the one we went to? We were at
no,
the
no.
Garden we saw
The
them.
Garden. We saw them at the Garden, and yeah, and like 2 weeks later they played the Coliseum.
I was gonna say, how could I forget if I saw Helix, I would be like,
Yeah, no, we didn't see them, but yeah, that was a show that we went to Madison Square Garden. I rushed. This pun was not on purpose, but I rushed to buy tickets
"Oh,
to
boy."
see Rush on the Grace of the Pressure tour. So the Madison Square Garden show went on sale, and I ran and bought tickets. And then later on, like a week later, they announced the Nassau Coliseum show, which would have been a lot closer to home, and I wasn't allowed to go to both.
But it's cooler to say you went to the Garden, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Another band that started a long time ago and just really never stopped is a band called Saxon.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're local legends in Barnsley, but Barnsley in the United Kingdom, north of Sheffield, that's where Saxon comes from. And they started out in 1975, and they are part of that new wave of British heavy metal, which included Iron Maiden and even Def Leppard originally. So they were part of that whole scene, and they came out with their first album in '78, I believe. This album that came out in March of '83 is "The Power and the Glory."
Mhm. It's
It
the
was
5th album, right?
fifth album. Actually, they were on the Billboard charts for the first time. The album reached 155. I didn't even know
Yep.
the Billboard charts went to 200, but um, so that was the first time they appeared on the American charts, and they even came to America to record the album. They recorded it in
Georgia. Yeah.
Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, I know. And the producer was Jeff Klicksman, who some people may have heard the name. He did a lot of albums, but he was most known at that time for having done all of Kansas's big albums, like Left Overture and Point of No Return. And I can't mention any other Kansas albums.
No.
Sorry, Scott.
We've yeah. We have a friend who loves Kansas, but I was one of those guys who knew their hits, that's it.
Yeah.
So,
So
um,
sounds like Saxon was going for it here. We're going to record in America. We're going to get a successful producer. And again, it did lead them to a little bit of success, but they never really took off in this country.
you know what they're like? I think they're like Stonehenge.
How
They're these
so?
rock icons from England who've always been there and probably always will be there. I just thought of that now.
I like that. I like that comparison. Yeah, they're just, you know what you're going to get. They're just standing there. And
They're solid.
if you go look for them, they'll be there.
They haven't changed. They haven't gone with the times.
Nope.
This is who we are,
Yeah.
and that's that.
And so I don't know what album number they're up to now, but it's probably, close to 20. And I did get a chance to actually see them live once. They opened up for Judas Priest in 2018 on Judas Priest's Firepower tour. So I saw them for the first time, and I knew a couple of the songs, Denim and Leather and some other ones, Wheels of Steel. But, I think they updated their sound. Some of their original members aren't around. So they had a drummer who was really good. He was doing a lot of crazy double bass. So they actually sounded heavier when I saw them in 2018 than they sounded to me back in the 80s.
Yeah, because they were always just a heavy metal band, just straight up rock in your face.
Yes.
No flashy stuff. No, just solid.
Yeah. They just never, I don't know why, when you saw and heard Iron Maiden in 1982 and saw and heard Judas Priest in 1982 and then saw and heard Saxon just wasn't at that level of Maiden and Priest.
No, again, it comes to maybe songwriting and it didn't have hooks. I don't know. Or they weren't pushed
Yeah.
or weren't given great producers to kind of make it sound better. I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about album covers. We were talking about Quiet Riot last episode, and if you look at some of the album covers of early Saxon,
Oh, this
they
is a
look
bad
kind
one.
of like cheesy and
I'm just gonna say it. It's a bad album cover.
yeah. What is it even? It's like
I don't.
fingers on fire or something. Like I
It's
don't
like a
even.
knight's helmet and fingers on fire.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
it just side by side with Screaming for Vengeance and Peace of Mind or Number of the Beast. I don't think and that mattered to some of us young kids, I guess.
Mm.
But let's stay over across the pond and jump from the UK to Sweden.
The almighty Europe. I
The
should feel like there should
continent?
be like an echo, like Europe, Europe, Europe.
Europe. So yeah, so you'd have bands named after cities and states even like Kansas, and now you have a band named after a continent.
An entire continent.
But actually, there's a band called Asia too.
There is.
Oh,
And it had a song, Africa.
whoa, was that Toto?
Maybe it was. See, that's how much it blew my mind.
Maybe Asia had a song called Africa also. So now all that's left to call a band is Australia,
North America.
North and South America.
Antarctica.
Hey, okay. So we'll have to look and see if there's other
What
continent
about
bands.
Pan America?
Pan America?
Is that?
Pan Am? Used to be an airline.
I don't know.
Anyway, Europe. They're from where? Sweden?
Yes.
All right. What's Europe's story?
Well, they were first called Force, and they made it they won a 1982 televised competition in the Swedish Rock Championships. And they won, as I said. And it was a major breakthrough for them back then. They won a record contract and it was signed to Hot Records. They also won Best Lead Singer and Best Guitarist.
The Hot Records?
I believe so.
Was that Hot with two T's?
No,
Oh.
they missed their opportunity with that one. And with the Z instead of an S, Records.
Hot Records. I just imagine the executive going up to them and said, boys, you're going to be big. I want you to sign with my record company, Hot Records.
Going on tour with Spinal Tap. And as I said, they won Best Lead Singer Guitarist, which is pretty well deserved because they were both very good in that regard. So,
guitar player, was that John Norum from the beginning?
I am not.
Because he was around until like
I'm not sure
Final
of
Countdown
the
days.
lineup changes with Europe. I didn't know about them even when their initial records came out.
Yeah, the singer Joey Tempest, he was around since the very beginning, and he writes the majority of the songs. And obviously, we know the keyboard lick that Europe is most known for, the Final Countdown. And I would love to know how much money they've made off that song. There's not a sporting event or anything in an arena that doesn't play the Final Countdown.
I always said, you could take your one-hit wonders and shove it. I'll take an arena song.
Yeah.
Like what is the Ramones? They always play.
Hey, let's go.
I mean, how much money do they make from that?
I don't know. I hope Joey Tempest is getting paid every time the Final Countdown is used because that's all he had to do for his entire life because I can't imagine how much money that single song has brought in.
And let me tell you, that guy has some teeth. Some of the whitest teeth in rock and roll.
Which we're all going to see starting in like 86. In 83, I had no idea who Europe was.
Me neither.
I didn't know they were first called Force. I thought the Final Countdown was their first album, to be honest with you. But this was their first album. They came out in March of 83, and it was evidently a little bit of a hit in Japan, which it's kind of a joke. We're big in Japan, but Japan, supported a lot of bands. And if you were able to go to Japan and sell out theaters, it actually really helped you worldwide.
Yeah, because then you can come back to America and say, hey, look what we did in this other country. So we obviously have something going on. And it helped.
And there were a lot of live albums that were recorded going back to, Made in Japan.
Yeah,
Cheap Trick Budokan.
Yeah.
You have Unleashed in the East, Judas Priest. You had the EP Made in Japan by Iron Maiden. So I was always kind of fascinated with Japan.
And the Quiet Riot that we spoke of the last episode. The first two.
First two albums, right. Yeah, first two albums in Japan. So that phrase that kind of became a joke, my band is big in Japan, was actually the case for a lot of bands early on. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Now, since we're in Europe and we went to England already, we'll just jump over to Dublin, Ireland, and talk about really local legends for the whole country and for Dublin. And the band is
Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy. Phil Lynott, who was the bass player, chief songwriter, singer of Thin Lizzy. This was actually in March of 83, their last album. Sadly, Phil Lynott dies in 1986. He does a few other things, but no official Thin Lizzy albums after this album that came out in '83 called Thunder and Lightning.
Mhm. No, I was as a kid, I didn't really listen to a lot of Thin Lizzy because it wasn't, metal per se, didn't it was not a hair band, it didn't have any flashy, crazy stuff, but looking back, it's one of those bands where you kinda respect everything they did, and I mean, you look at the guitar harmonies, they're amazing, and they influenced a lot of it. You look at the harmonies in bands like Iron Maiden, for example, you know, you could say it's influenced by Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, Thin Lizzy you'd hear their name mentioned a lot. Like Craig said, we were younger. I think I knew The Boys Are Back in Town, which is a really radio friendly rock song, and maybe Jailbreak. So those are the only two songs that I probably knew. And then you start to hear your favorite bands like Iron Maiden say how much they love Thin Lizzy.
Mhm.
And, Metallica covers Whiskey in the Jar, which is a very old Irish song, but they were kind of copying it because Thin Lizzy had done it. And you start to hear it, and then you say, hey, let me check out Thin Lizzy. And then you hear the guitar harmonies Craig's talking about on songs like Massacre. And they have a great live album, not recorded in Japan, but what's the live album? I can't think of the title. I'm embarrassed. I can't think of the title. They have this really famous live album. He's on the cover. I'll have to look it up.
Figure it out.
But this Thunder and Lightning album is not only their last album, it's their only album with a guitar player who becomes a big part of 80s metal later on, and that's John Sykes. John Sykes, he was in a band called Tigers of Pantang, and then he leaves that band and replaces a guitar player named Brian Robertson, who leaves Thin Lizzy. And so this album has Scott Gorham and Brian Downey, but also John Sykes. And the big song, I don't know how big it was, but the song that I know that I hear get played still on some rock stations on satellite radio is Cold Sweat. And John Sykes, when he did solo shows, would still do that song. But unfortunately, this was their 12th and final album.
And going back to the harmonies, I never really appreciated them until I was older, obviously. And I remember being at a show where there were a bunch of bands playing, and there was a Thin Lizzy tribute. And
Really?
and I was there, so I don't wanna say I was forced to watch them, but I was there, so I watched them. And I started hearing all this cool guitar work, all these crazy harmonies and cool harmonies, and I was like, "Thin Lizzy did all that? I didn't know." All these years I've been missing out on that.
Yeah.
So a lot of good stuff, and I never would have known if not for a tribute band.
Tribute bands have their
They have their place.
Yeah, they spread the word for some of these bands and some of their unknown songs. Live and Dangerous. Yes, I used my phone to look it up, but Live and Dangerous is their great, most well-known live album. It came out in 1978 when everyone was putting out live albums back then. You want to know? I knew this without looking it up, but a guy comes out and plays harmonica on the live album. Do you know who it is?
Oh boy, it's not Soupy Sales, right?
Soupy Sales.
I don't know.
The old radio host guy
who might play harmonica.
Did he play harmonica?
I don't know. He seems like he might.
Well, I didn't know this till a couple of years ago because I was listening to Thin Lizzy and listening to the album, and I looked up different things about the album. Huey Lewis.
Really?
They announce him by the name Hugh Craig, but he comes out and plays harmonica on the live album, Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huey Lewis.
It's Huey Lewis. I don't know if he'll come up ever again on this metal podcast.
Didn't your sister have a big thing for him in junior high?
She did, and if she ever listens to this, she'll probably be mortified that you said that. But yeah, she did like Huey Lewis. I mean, he was big.
She had a shirt of him, too.
She did have a Huey Lewis shirt.
I remember that
She'll
because we
appreciate
were
you
metal,
mentioning that also.
and I was like, "Oh, she likes Huey Lewis, but we're metal. What's going
Yeah.
on?"
And that was probably 1983 also. That's probably when he was all big with that sports album. And then my sister, I remember, came home with a record by some pretty boy that I'd never heard of before. And it was, I'm like, who is this guy? And she put the record on, and it was Runaway. And she had like some radio station album that had Runaway on it, and she would always play Bon Jovi's Runaway.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, we're getting off topic. But yes, my sister did like Huey Lewis. So Thin Lizzy, like we said, and we joked all through this episode talking about local legends, starting with Zebra. But Thin Lizzy really are. I mean, there's a statue in Dublin
Mm,
to Phil Lynott.
yeah,
You know, you can find pictures of it online. But so yeah, Phil Lynott, legend, Thin Lizzy, legendary band. They have reformed to do tributes, and they actually called themselves Thin Lizzy even without him, which was a little strange. And
you
then
can't
some of the
have Thin
guys,
Lizzy without Phil.
yeah, some of the guys became the Black Star Riders, and John Sykes is going to come up in a lot of future episodes because he has a part in Whitesnake's history, a Blue Murder, and some solo stuff. So we'll be hearing
Yeah,
about
he
John
was
Sykes
huge.
again.
He's a really good player too.
Oh yeah,
Listen to
and
some of that
probably
White Snake stuff. It's
probably
great.
underappreciated because of not appearing in certain videos and not getting his name out there. People don't know, how much of a role he played in Whitesnake's success. But we'll talk about that when
When the time
we
comes.
talk White Snake. But if you have any thoughts on any of these bands, memories of seeing them live, memories of information we didn't include, or maybe something we even got wrong.
Yeah, just let us know. Or you have a story. Have you met one of these guys? Or let us know. What were they like? We'd like to
Yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah.
it's always a cool stories to listen to when people have met people, and it makes it so much better.
I think together we saw three of these 6 bands live. So if you've seen any of the other 3 live or have any thoughts, reach out to us at the 80s Metal Hang at gmail.com or the 80s Metal Hang on Instagram.
Exactly. And if it's a great story, we'll probably read it. I mean,
Yeah.
like we said, we love this stuff. We know there are lots of people out there that love this stuff. So share with us, and we'll spread it out.
Yes. So that's it. That was a pretty good episode number 3.
I think so.
And as we follow our pattern, we'll be back next week with episode number 4 on the goings on of April 1983 in heavy metal history.
And I'm gonna go listen to that Zebra album as soon as I leave.
Let's drop the needle and tell me what you want. All right. See you later, everyone.
Bye.
Be sure to follow us at the 80s Metal Hang on Instagram. That's the 80s, 80S Metal Hang.
We also have weekly playlists on Spotify highlighting the bands and songs discussed in each episode. You can also find that stuff in the show notes of each episode.